Hello and welcome. You are now looking at the desktop application, Microsoft Excel. Microsoft Excel is designed to take data in the form of numbers and words and to create sensible analysis from it. It allows you to produce these documents and customize them in ways that make sense for the people that you are delivering the information to. Now in this course, we will look at various aspects of the creation process. We'll take a look at the basic elements of each menu: the File menu, the Home menu, the Insert menu, the Page Layout menu, the Formulas menu, the Data menu, the Review menu, and the View menu, so that you'll be able to create your own spreadsheets as well as enter and manipulate data. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I'll see you in the first video. Welcome back. Now, the interface of Microsoft Excel is designed to be similar to other Microsoft Office programs. For example, when you see the menu across the top, you'll notice that it's very similar to Microsoft PowerPoint and Microsoft Word. In fact, you'll notice that the Home menu is going to be very much the same. Microsoft Excel has what is called the formula bar, and the formula bar is going to pertain to whatever cell that you have highlighted. So for example, if we write the word Google into the cell that we have highlighted, you'll notice the word Google inside the address bar. That'll be the same if you have numbers in there also. And you'll notice that here. So if you highlight this cell, what you want to do is you want to write into the address bar to make changes. When you first click on a cell, you can write to that cell. However, if you go back subsequently, it may be more difficult, and what you want to do is use the address bar. You'll notice the word Sheets at the bottom. You'll notice the word Sheet at the bottom, which stands for spreadsheet, and every workbook has several spreadsheets, so the file that you're going to save can have an unlimited number of worksheets inside of it. So for example, what we can do is we can click this button that says New Sheet. We can add a second sheet. We can add a third sheet, a fourth sheet, and as many as we need. In order to make sure that these sheets are going to be identifiable, we can rename them, and we can click the Rename button. And Excel will allow us to write into this area. We can do the same thing for any other sheet. And then we can write in to make changes. In some cases, you're going to want to see more of the worksheet at a glance. And so you can do that by zooming in and making the sheet so that you can see more of it. You can also zoom out of the sheet where you can see the cells larger but less of it. As is always the case in all Microsoft Office programs, you'll have the opportunity to redo your last action. You can do that and by checking in all of the areas in which you have worked before, and you can go back over your work and redo certain steps. Now the bottom bar is also going to be customizable. If you go to this very bottom bar and you right click it, you'll notice that you can add in any information that you want to have here shown on your status bar, because as you're working inside of your cells, this status bar will tell you what's happening inside of the cell. And finally, just as you would inside of any other Microsoft Office program, each menu is going to have certain panels. For example, if we look at the Home menu, we'll see the Clipboard panel, the Font panel, Alignment panel, Number panel, Styles panel, Cells panel, Editing panel. And you've seen similar designs with Word, where you've got the Clipboard panel, Font panel, Paragraph panel, Styles panel, and Editing panel. Same again with similarities with the Clipboard panel, Slides panel, Fonts, Paragraph, Drawing, and Editing. And we are now ready to begin working with the File menu. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in the next video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we're first going to take a look at the File menu. And to do that, we're going to go to the left side. We're going to click on the File. You're going to see this area open up. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click inside of this first link which says Info. Now this tab has all property information that you can edit before you save your file. So for example, what you can do is you can obviously write in the name of the document. When you save it, you can tag the document with specific attributes, and you can even add a category to the document. What this does is add to the metadata when someone gets the document or saves it. If you want to add in attribution or someone that's worked on the document, you can add that author in by clicking in this link. You can expand the list of properties by clicking this area, and you'll then have other metadata you can put in, such as your company or your brand. Now, because Microsoft Excel is shareable across the web, we can determine how it's going to be viewed inside of a browser, and we can control that by clicking this Browser View Options button. For example, if we have more than one worksheet, we can determine that only one of those worksheets can be seen on the web. Note that we now have 4 workbooks. What we can do is we can determine that there are only going to be a certain number of sheets that can be seen, and we can determine that here. We can determine that the only thing that's going to be visible online is going to be certain items in the workbook. And obviously, these are things that are going to be highlighted and tagged. For example, if we are inside of Excel and we determine that we are going to use this item and that's the only thing we want to be seen on the web, what we can do is we can say that we are going to define a name for this. We're going to call this name region. We're then going to click OK. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to our file command. We're now going to click inside of our browser options. We're now going to say that we only want certain items in the workbook to be seen, and we're going to be able to click this button that says region. Now in the next video, we'll look at the rest of the items in the file menu. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We're now going to go to the file command, and we're now going to take a look at this new link. And what you're going to notice is that you have several pre-planned ways for you to start working with Excel. You can start with the plain blank workbook. In most cases, this is where you're going to start working with your document. You can also have what are called templates, and you'll see those here. For example, you'll see an expense trends budget, you'll see a back-to-school planner, and these are starter templates that will help you to start creating a document from something that's pre-planned. Now we will take a look at this in depth in another video. We can also go to open an existing document, and so by clicking this document we can find any open Excel documents on our hard drive. Of course, we know that saving our documents, we would use these 2 links, as well as saving the entire document as a PDF file. Now obviously you're going to print from this menu, but printing is going to be a little more involved because in some cases you're only going to be printing certain parts of your document. Now again, we're going to look at that in a separate video in depth. In the last video, we talked about sharing the document or having it viewed online. We can click this link to share the document with someone else. When we click Save to Cloud, this document is going to be saved to a specific OneDrive location. Now you do need to have OneDrive with Microsoft Office, and this will be saved to your account. We can email the document as an attachment to an email. We can also present the document online. This basically allows us to use Microsoft Excel inside of a program like Skype Meeting as part of Office 365 and to collaborate with people in real time on the actual document that we're working on. Now again, we'll be using the document in OneDrive, however, we'll be using some of Microsoft Office online meeting facilities in order to do that. Now we can export the content in our Microsoft Office document to other locations. So for example, we can export this document into a PDF, and we can actually change the file type. Now in Microsoft Excel, this is going to work the same as saving the document as another kind of document and changing the name. However, it also exists inside of the export command. You can publish your document to Power BI, and Power BI is a paid solution for business intelligence. You can close the document that you're working on, and this will take you back to the beginning. Now, one thing that will determine how you'll interact with Microsoft Excel will be this options link. Now, when you're new with working with Microsoft Excel, you'll probably want to leave the default settings as they are. However, you will want to be familiar with each and every one of these areas, because if you hit a point at which you need to do something different, Microsoft Excel is adaptable. So you have areas where you can adapt how you interact with formulas, with data, how you check over your work, how you save your document or how it auto-saves, the language, and more advanced options that you'll just want to be familiar with mildly. You can customize your ribbons as well as your toolbar. And at a glance, you can look at what programs are working with or inside of your Microsoft Excel. And this can be important because if your Microsoft Excel is not performing adequately, or if it's performing slow, in some cases it can be an add-in that may be slowing it down. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We're now going to look at the home menu, and you're going to notice that there's a clipboard menu, a font menu, alignment, a number menu, a styles menu, a cells menu, and an editing menu. Now, the clipboard menu functions as you might think. You can place your cursor inside of a particular, and you can paste whatever you've copied into the clipboard. So for example, we will then hit Control V, which is typically what you would use for the paste command. And you can then use any of the other text manipulation commands that you would use in any other document program. You can bold the information, you can italicize it, you can then underline it, you can then place a background inside of the information, and you can change the font color. You can change the font style, and you can change the font size. Now, in terms of the alignment, what we can do is we can expand the cells so we can look at the alignment capabilities. And actually what we're going to do is widen this. You can center justify, you can right justify, you can left justify. Now, just for your information, one of the things that we did in order to widen this cell is that we took the right hand corner and we can slide these things over. If you have a case where your cell is going to be smaller than what you have in text, all you have to do is double click this end and it will lengthen to the length of the text. And of course you can slide it out from there. And then that's where you'll be able to see your justification. You can format the cells of particular numbers. So for example, if you have a series of numbers in a specific column or row, you can use the format command to format those numbers. So for example, one of the things we can do is we can turn this to currency. We can turn this to a date. We can turn it to the formatting that we want, or fraction. The styles command allows you to show your cells in different ways so that you can highlight certain things. For example, you have one table here where you can do conditional formatting. So assuming that you have a series of numbers here, conditional formatting will allow you to set rules for the content. So for example, we can say that if the value is going to be greater than 77, then what we're going to do is we're going to make this a certain color. And you'll see that then will happen to all of the data that you place in this column. You can use the cells command to either add cells or delete cells or to format cells. So for example, if we want to add cells, we could use this command. For example, we can insert a cell. We can delete a cell. We can insert an entire row of cells, or we can delete an entire row of cells. We can take one cell or a series of cells using the format command. We can format that cell. We can format the height. We can format the width. We can make it so that the cell does not appear. And you're also going to find some overlap with the view area where we're going to be able to protect certain cells from individuals being able to edit the information. There's also some overlap with the data menu here in the editing panel. So for example, if we want to find a certain area of our spreadsheet, we can use find. We can then find the number 67, and then Excel will then go to that particular cell where you'll find the data that you want. Or for example, if we wanted to write in the word Google, Excel will then go to the place where it finds that text. So the home command allows you to place and manipulate data inside of your Excel spreadsheet. And for the most part, if you've ever used Microsoft Word or you've ever used Microsoft PowerPoint, much of the way in which you place content inside of Excel is going to be the same as if you were doing it in those other programs. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Before we view the insert menu, we're going to clear out all that we have inside of this part of the spreadsheet that we used with the home menu. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to this intersection between the columns and rows, and we're going to click this area, and you're going to find that then the entire spreadsheet is then highlighted. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to our home menu, we're going to go to edit, and we're going to click clear all. And that's going to remove everything from the cells. Now you'll notice then that our cells are still going to be the same width and height that we left them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click inside of one of the cells. That'll take us back to the normal mode. Then we're going to go to the insert menu. Now pivot tables are a very special way of being able to summarize all of the information that you have when you have certain data. It is a more advanced feature, but very helpful to you once you're in the analysis stage of working with your data. Now in the illustrations panel, this will probably be familiar to you if you are a user of Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint. All of these are ways that you can add in content to your spreadsheet or your spreadsheet document. For example, if we wanted to add an online picture to a particular area, all we would need to do is to click this button, click in the one that we want, and then insert the information. And of course, we can go back to our home menu and we can clear this out, or we can just undo with the undo command. Going back to the insert menu, you also have add-ins that you can place to increase the functionality of Microsoft Excel. You can check those that are going to be more geared toward Microsoft Excel, or you can use those that are going to be close to the kind of work that you are doing inside of Excel. Now the charts area will turn your data into visual content. So for example, let's assume that you have two columns of related data. When you have this information inside of Excel, you can turn this into a chart. So for example, if we highlight this data and we go to our chart area, what we can do is we can set up the kind of chart that we want to display. And you can see that Microsoft Excel will give you a sample display as you hover over the different elements of displaying the data. And you can do that with each kind of chart that you intend to use. If you intend to use geographical data, you can use the map chart. And that's going to be the case whether you want to use it in 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions using the 3D map. Both the spark lines and the filters are different ways of being able to view this data. You can also hyperlink some of the data. So for example, if we highlight this cell and we decide to hyperlink this cell, we can insert a link for the data inside of this cell. That data is then going to be clickable to the link that you placed inside of there. And just as you would with a Microsoft Word and or a PowerPoint document, you are able then to insert text boxes, headers and footers, word art, and then objects to the document. Now, if you are working with scientific equations, you can input those equations into your spreadsheet using the equation command. And since you're working with numbers, there may be times when you want to use symbols that are not going to be found on your keyboard. You'll typically be able to find those symbols in the insert command by placing your cursor here and clicking on the symbols, and then choosing the symbol that you want to use from the ones given to you here. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We're now looking at the page layout menu, which is the next menu over. And this menu is designed to help us when we are ready to take our data and print it and make it presentable for someone else to see. So for example, one thing that we can do is we can change what's called the theme, and basically all we're doing is changing the way that the spreadsheet is going to look. And so when we get ready to add color or we get ready to add charts, we're going to be able to do that according to a theme as well as a color scheme. We're going to be able to do that using specific fonts. We're also going to be able to do that with specific effects that are going to be shown. Now you're going to see that there's a page setup panel. Again, this is going to be specifically for when we get ready to either print or get our report ready for sale. For example, let's create some data in one cell. Let's copy this cell by hitting Control-C. And then let's create an entire range of data. Now that we've created this entire range of data, we can take a look at our page setup area. One thing that we can do is we can decide on what the print area is going to be. And so to do that, I'm going to click the escape key so that there is no longer any active cell. And we're going to click print area. Now what we can do is we can highlight the area that we actually want to print. And we're then going to click set print area. That means then when we get ready to print, this is going to be the active area. And you'll be able to see that if you go to the file menu, you go to the print command, and you'll see that this is what we're actually going to print. Say now that you had a second set of data and we wanted to take this data, highlight it, and then click set print area. What you're going to notice is if we go to the file command, if we go to print, you're now going to see this as the print area. And what we can also do is go back to this print area. We can then go to another area that we want to highlight. And what we can do is we can add to the print area. If we go back to our file command and we go to print, what you're going to notice is that you'll see the first print area that we had, but there's also going to be another page, and that's going to be the second print area. And so you'll see that you're going to be able to determine the margins, the orientation, and the size for the print area that you decide on. Now, whatever we're going to be displaying, we decide on how it's going to fit on the page. We can let Microsoft Office determine it based on what it feels is reasonable, and you're going to leave that on automatic if that's the case. However, you can decide that everything that's on your spreadsheet when it comes to the width is going to fit on one page. You can determine that. You can also determine that everything going up and down or vertical is also going to fit on the page, and you can determine that it's going to fit on one page or two page, but you can determine that up front. This gives you control over how your reports are going to appear. You'll notice that there are grid lines in the last set of data. We can decide to leave those grid lines out. And then if we go to the file command, we go to the print, you'll see that there are no grid lines. If we go back, place those grid lines in there, we can go to file, we can then print, then you'll see the grid lines going to be back there. You determine how things are going to appear on your sheet by using bring forward and send backwards, as well as the selection pane. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. You are now looking at the formulas menu, which is the next menu over. And the formulas menu actually is the power of Excel. Anytime you have a series of numbers or a series of data, or in some cases a series of text, you can make an effect on that text or that data by using formulas. And you can use this menu in various ways. For example, one of the easiest ways to use the formulas menu is to use the auto sum. So for example, if we were to highlight all of this information and we were to use the auto sum and just take the sum, you'll see that we're able to get the sum at the very bottom of the content by using that menu. We can do the very same thing again. We're going to use the undo command. We use auto sum and we can take the average. You'll see the average come available in this area. And basically each of these areas is going to take some time to learn the basics of how each of the formula works. So for example, we'll look in the financial formulas. You'll see various finance number values. You'll see, for example, future value or internal rate of return or net present value if you're familiar with that. And basically what happens is if you place your cursor inside of a specific cell and you decide you want a certain formula. So for example, you want the net present value in this case. What your Excel will prompt you for is going to be the various cells that you're going to use for that formula. So for example, we can decide to use a specific cell. We can use, in this case, a number cell for the first value. We can use a number cell for the second value. And then we can click OK. And you'll notice then that we get a calculation here. Now, if you know what net present value means, then you know what that number means. And we can use the same method for any of the formulas that you have available to you. For the most frequently used formulas, you can go to this one, even though that's going to be in some of the other areas. So for example, if all we wanted to do was to sum or average, we can do that by placing our cursor where we want the final number. We can then decide that we want an average. It's then going to ask us where we're going to get that information from. And what we're going to do is we're going to then highlight an area, and then we're going to click OK. And then what will happen is Excel will give us the average. So basically, you are looking at your formulas to determine which one is going to be the most logical to use and to use it inside of the cell where you want the result. If you want more kinds of formulas, you can take a look at the More Functions area. You have statistical formulas you can determine, engineering formulas, cube formulas. You can also have formulas for specific information, compatibility, and even the web. Now, if you want to make sure that your formula is working correctly, you can use the formula auditing section. If you want to work through your calculations while you are still creating your worksheet, you can use the calculation section. And you can define names for the results you're getting from your formulas by using defined names. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We are now in the data menu, which is the next menu over. And to demonstrate what happens in the data menu, we're going to go to a new sheet by clicking on sheet 3 here at the bottom. And the first panel is where we have options on how we get the data. So for example, if we use this drop-down menu that says Get Data, we can pull data inside our spreadsheet from a file. We can do it from a database or from analysis services. We can pull data from online services, and at this point, Excel connects to Facebook. We can pull data from other sources. Again, now you'll need to set these up ahead of time, but for example, we can pull data from the web. We can get data from a text or CSV file by clicking this link. Now there is a little redundancy here by having this menu in the bar. It's also in the Get Data area. Now if we have another set of data that we have named in another spreadsheet or another worksheet, we can get that data from this area. And what we would need to do is we would need to determine the address for that data and place it here. So for example, if we were to pull in data from a text file, what we would do is to go to this menu. We would then click From Text or CSV. Excel will give you a glimpse of what you're about to transform into Excel, and you'll then click Load. You'll then see your data imported into Microsoft Excel. Now, in the next video, we'll take a look at the sorting and filtering capabilities of the data section, as well as some of the data tools. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We're now going to look at other parts of the data menu. In particular, we're going to look at the sort and filter commands and the data tools. Now, the sort command is another very widely used function of Excel, and basically allows us to sort any column of data. So for example, we can take this set of numbers, we can click the sort command, and what we can do is we can decide that we want to sort that column on the basis of the cell values, and then we want to sort it on the basis of smallest to largest. You're going to notice then that all of the values appear in numerical order. We can do this across multiple sets of data. So for example, we can go across 3 sets of data. We can then click the sort command, and then we can sort by a specific column. We can sort by column C. We can then sort on the basis of largest to smallest, then click OK. You'll see then all of the data is going to arrange according to this column. We can also sort text columns. So for example, we can sort this data, click sort. We can determine that we want this data to appear in A to Z order. And you'll see then that the data will realign. We can also set filters across our data. So for example, what we can do is we can click the filter button. You'll see then that we have drop-down arrows on each column. We can then take that drop-down arrow and then we can rearrange it, largest to smallest. Now we also have data tools inside of this panel. So for example, one thing we can do is we can remove duplicates from our data. So where we have some duplicate names, we can take this selection. We can click this button that says remove duplicates. We'll specify the column. You'll notice then that we have duplicate items removed. Now once you understand these basic features, you can then use some of the other tools in order to provide analysis, such as what-if analysis. We can provide a forecast based on a set of data, and we can arrange our data either by grouping or by consolidating. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now in this video, we're working inside of the review menu, and you'll notice that most of these features exist in other Microsoft Word applications. The proofing, accessibility, insights, language, and even the commenting, which allows you to collaborate and work with other people and keep track of the changes that other people are making. Now, unique to Excel is going to be your ability to do what's called protecting the workbook. And when you're protecting either the workbook or the sheet, what you're doing is you're keeping others from being able to edit the document or change the data in it. So for example, what we can do in this case is we're going to click Protect Sheet. What we can also do is make it so that the people we're working with can change some sections of the document. In that case, what we're going to do is we're going to use this area that says Allow Edit Ranges. Now for example, if we place our cursor inside of this cell, what you're going to notice is that this formula depends on 2 cells, E10 and D10. So in this case, you'll see that there is an E10 cell, which is E, and then 10, this cell, and then D10. So what we want to do is we want to make it so that E10 can be edited. So we're going to click Allow Edit Ranges, and we're going to determine the exact place where others can make changes. And we're going to call this something specific. And what we can do is we can make it so that the individual that's going to make the change is going to need a password. And then we're going to click OK. We're going to need to re-enter the password. Then we'll click OK. That means then that although this entire sheet is going to be protected and not changeable, this one cell is going to be changeable. And that's going to help us to be able to make changes to the formula that we have. So we're going to click Apply. And then we're going to click OK. So basically now we've made it so that if someone wants to make changes to this file, the only thing they're going to be able to make changes to will be this cell, which will then affect this formula. So again, you can protect your entire workbook or worksheet, and then you can allow individuals to make changes to crucial parts of calculations that you actually want to make. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now your view menu, which is the next menu over, is basically going to show you what your document's going to look like when you're printing, as well as give you some alternatives to viewing your data in real time. So for example, if we want to know what our data is going to look like when we print it, all we'll need to do is to go to our page layout, and this will show us what we'll actually be printing. And we can make our spreadsheet usable in ways that makes it easy for us to work with our data. So for example, let's assume that you have information that's off the screen, but you want to match it up with a column that you already have on the left side. One of the things you can do is you can use the split command. And so what we're going to do is we're going to place our cursor at this point in the column. We're then going to click the split command. We're then going to place our cursor here, and what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to go all the way over to the right, and then we're not going to have to change this information. We're going to be able to see this data versus the column that we have all the way on the left side. Now to take the split off, all we have to do is click the split button. We can do the very same thing with rows. So we can place our cursor inside of the row. We can then click the split command, and then we can work with our data in that way. We can freeze our panes. So for example, one thing we can do is we can take this top column, we can then go to freeze panes, and then we can freeze the top row. And then what we can do is we can then scroll all the way to the bottom. What this allows us to do is this allows us to see our heading versus the data at the bottom of the very worksheet. And of course, in addition to working with the rows, we can also work with columns. Now, macros will allow us to record repeated activity. So we record a macro, what we're doing is we're recording something that we do over and over again so that we can use that same process automatically if we have to start another spreadsheet and we're going to be doing the very same thing. Now, this is a bit of a complex process, but it's one that will make sense as you begin to use Excel more. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, when you want to start a new workbook, one of the things you can do is you can use existing templates inside of Microsoft Excel. So we can click this New button, and you're going to see that Microsoft Excel gives you a certain number of pre-planned templates. There are also templates available online that you have access to. So for example, one of the things you can use Excel for is you can use it for a budget. And so you'll notice here that you have an expense trends budget. You can use this as a starter template by clicking the button and then clicking Create. And basically what it does is it fills out the information, and then all you need to do is to use the format to fit your particular information. So we can now go back to the File command. We can go back to New. And now we can look for some of the templates that might be available online. You might write in a template that you may be looking for. And you'll notice here that here's a template for a marketing event budget. Here's a marketing project plan, a channel marketing budget. And so basically you can choose any of these templates that might look like something that you'd be interested in using. You'll click Create. In this case, we have some information about the template. We have 3 worksheets. We have the category chart, we have the start, and then we have the actual budget plan. And again, all we need to do is we need to write in where we're going to change the information into something that we're going to want to use. You'll notice here also that there are list templates, and this actually gives you a good idea of some of the other ways that you can use Excel other than using data and manipulating it. For example, some people use Microsoft Excel as a way of creating an invoice. And you'll see that here. And you can also use templates for charts. And these charts are going to have both the data and the images associated with them. And you'll see that here. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, one of the things you'll have to work with from time to time, whether you're working in rows or columns, in titles and labels, is you'll have to work with dates. And you'll want to be able to format those dates in ways that make sense for what it is that you are trying to communicate. So by default, if you were to write in titles, for example, let's say that we want to write across the top, we want to write in January of 2018 to December of 2018. What you're going to notice is that if you write in the words January 2018, Microsoft Excel is going to change the formatting to a default setting. It's going to change it to 1/1/2018. It's going to change this to the month January of 18. However, that may not be the way you want it to appear. And so what we're going to do to change that is we're going to highlight this row. I'm going to do that by clicking inside of the column, and then we're going to click the first row in the column, and that's going to give us control over all the cells in this row. And when you see all those cells highlighted all the way across your sheet, that means then that you're going to be making changes across the entire row. So what we're going to do then is we're going to right-click that area. We're then going to click Format Cells. We're then going to click the date. And what you're going to see is you're going to see some default settings for the date. Now, if what you see doesn't necessarily match what you want, what you can do is you can click the Custom area. And what you're going to notice is that there are ways that we can format the date that may be more consistent with what we want. For example, Microsoft Excel says if we want to write the month as January through December, we're going to need to write 4 M's. If we want to express the year, we're going to write 4 Y's. So you're going to notice that there is a sample default setting that's already there. We're going to take this one and we're just going to modify it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out the dash. We're going to write the 4 M's. We're going to write a space, and then we're going to write 4 Y's. Then we're going to click OK. What you're going to notice then is that automatically Excel then changes those labels to what we want them to be. Or it could be that we're doing a chart, and all we want to have is the first letter. And we can go to Format Cells. In this case, we can probably just go to the Date tab, and you'll see here that there is a setting for just the month where all that will be filled in is going to be the first letter. We're then going to click OK. Then you'll see JFM, which represents January, February, March. So you can work with dates across an entire section by formatting the cells in that section to be what you want them to be. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, in the same way that we formatted dates in a row, we can also format them in a column. In addition to formatting dates, we can also format the numbers in a row as well as a column. And we can do that by going to the very top row, going to the column of numbers we want to format, clicking inside of the column, and then we're going to right-click inside of that column. And again, we're going to click Format Cells. And this time, we're going to come up with the number category. And what we're going to do is we're going to format those numbers in the way that we want them. So in this case, we may want to format the numbers as dollars or currency. And we can do that by going to this area and formatting the numbers the way we want them. We can decide on whether or not we're going to have a symbol, if any. We can decide on how many decimal places we're going to have. And all we'll need to do then is we'll need to click the OK button. And you'll notice then that our formatting then goes to dollars. We can then format another column. We can then right-click. We can format these cells. We can then choose the numbers that we want to format and how we want to format them. Once we've done that, we can then click OK. Now, one of the things you want to note about formatting numbers is that the value of the number doesn't change. All we're doing is formatting the view of the actual number when we change the formatting of the cell. However, there is a case where we can take a column of numbers and we can format them to be a percentage. We can do that by going to the Format Cells, and then we can change this to a percentage. We can decide on how many decimal places we're going to have. For example, we can say we're going to have no decimal places, and we're then going to click OK. Now, one of the things you're going to notice when you do that is you're going to notice that you have 2300%. What that means is that you actually put in 23, and it's not going to change to 23%. Remember, the value is going to stay the same. What you'll also notice is the label falls outside of the cell. And in order to make it fit within the cell, remember, we have to right-click this side arrow, and then percentage fits within this area. Now, in order to make this column into one that would be 23%, we'd actually have to use a formula. And so what we would do is we would create a formula in this cell, and what we would do is we would then take this cell, and we would do that by creating a formula where we would then take this cell and then multiply it by 0.01. And that will then give us 0.23. We can then take that same formula and copy it all the way down to the end. And we can do that by taking this handle and pulling it all the way down. And then you'll notice then that our formula changes. What we can then do is we can then go to the top of this row. We can then right-click. We can format the cell. And then what we can do is then change this to percentage with 2 decimal places. We'll then click OK. And then you'll notice then that we have 23%, 22%, and all of the percentage points the way we would actually want to see them. So formatting the cell really means right-clicking, going to formatting cells, and then looking to find out how you want the cell to be formatted. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. You'll notice that we've written in text to this particular column, and we can do that in any column that we're going to be working with. So for example, if we're going to write in text to a specific column, all we'll need to do is to go to the cell or the address bar to write that text in. When you write that text in, Excel can differentiate when you're writing it in as text or a label from something else that you are trying to do. Once you have your text, you can manipulate it using the home menu. You can set different parameters for the text. As you can see, we've bolded, italicized, and underlined. Remember, what we can also do is if our cell is not wide enough, we can click on the side arrow or sidebar and then open up the cell so that it will be wide enough to have all of the text in. Now, there are formulas that we can use on the text that we place inside of Excel. We can use the formulas in the text area as well as the logical area. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, Microsoft Excel will allow the manual creation of formulas inside of any cell. So for example, if we place our cursor in any cell, we can start the creation of any calculation or formula by starting with the equal sign. Once we have that equal sign, we can type in any number. We can then type in the symbol for the action. So in this particular case, for multiplication, we would use the asterisk. We can then type in another number, and then we can click enter, and you'll notice then that we have the value for that information. What we can also do is we can take one of those numbers and we can multiply it by the value in a cell. So for example, what we're going to do to edit this cell is we're going to go to the address bar, we're going to delete the number, and instead we're going to take our cursor and click on a specific cell. So now we have the number 9, the asterisk sign for multiplication, And then we're going to be multiplying by the value in this cell. And you'll notice then that the value goes up. What we can do then is we can change the value in that cell so that we change the total value. So for example, if we went to this cell and we change the value, you'll notice then that the value of this number changes because we changed the value in this cell. Now again, this is all due to a manual formula that we created. Of course, we can change this from multiplication to addition. And all we need to do is to change the symbol, and the value will change. We can also do more complex equations. So for example, what we can do with this equation is we can put it in parentheses just as we would in a typical order of operations case. We can then take the whole product and then multiply that by the value in a particular cell by clicking on the cell. We then click this button, and then you'll see a different value come up here. We can then change the value again by taking out this number in this case, and then changing that to a value that we have in our sheet. We then click enter, and the value changes again. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Welcome back. Now what makes Excel unique is that we can create calculations in any cell or any set of cells. So for example, if we place our cursor inside of this one cell, we can then calculate based on the values that we place in there. Now when we're calculating, we're really just using one form of an actual formula. So for example, if we click this button and we insert a function, we can do is we will then write in the function that we're going to be using. In this particular case, maybe we want to use all of the functions, and maybe we want to then look for the sum. And you'll notice then that our address bar then has an equal sign in there. And basically then we'll need to then define the numbers where we want to calculate the sum. And then click OK. You'll notice then that we will sum this whole number from E4 to E16. So the calculations you'll be doing will be based on the values that are in the cell, and you can do any calculation in any cell with either numbers and or values. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now when you have multiple areas of data, you're going to want to set up your print job so that it works for those to whom you are presenting the information to. What you can do is you can go to the File command, you can then go and click Print. And what you're going to notice is that there is a link at the bottom for the page setup. And so one of the things you're going to want to do is to determine how you want to print your data. Now you're going to see a sample of how the data is going to be printed, and you're going to be able to determine first the orientation. So if you want to use landscape, you'll see how landscape view is going to look with your data. You're then going to be able to set your margins, and those margins will determine how your data sits on your page. If you want to place headers and footers, you'll be able to write that information inside of the page setup, and routinely you will be entering some kind of header or footer. You'll also be able to determine how a particular sheet is going to be printed. And as we went over in the page layout, we can also determine grid lines and headings, as well as a particular print area when we want to only print a certain level of data. So for example, again, if we only want to print this one area, what we want to do is we want to go and highlight that area and then click Set Print Area. First, we're going to clear the print area of any other jobs, and then we're going to set the print area for the information that we have here. And then when we go back to our print, you're going to notice that all of this information is here. We can then come back and then center this information horizontally. We can center it vertically. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click OK. And then you'll see that our data is then going to be centered on our page. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now also in your print area, you're also going to have some separate print settings. And these are going to be pretty important because you're typically going to be turning your Excel document into a PDF file. And so because of that, you're going to be delivering this to someone digitally, and you want it to make sense to them, and you can control that by controlling your print settings. So for example, one of the things you can do is you can decide whether or not you're going to print the entire workbook, or whether or not you're going to print your active sheet, or you're only going to print a certain selection. You can also ignore the print area that you set up when you do your printing. So you have those options available to you when you print your Excel document. You can decide that each document and worksheet will have its own numbering system, or you can have it printed so that it's uncorrelated. Now again, you can determine what the orientation is going to be when you print it. For example, if you want to print on landscape mode, you can do that. If you want to keep the portrait mode, you can do that also. And then you can redetermine the margins and the scaling in this area. And you can do that so that all of the columns are going to fit on one page, or all the rows are going to fit on one page, or you're going to fit the entire document so that people can see it all on one page. So again, these are going to be important factors when you determine how you're going to have your file digitized. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. In conclusion, you've now seen the basics of every menu inside of Microsoft Excel, in addition to being able to do the basics of calculation, text, and dates. You should also know now how to print the exact area that you want from either your worksheet or from your entire workbook. That means then that you should now be able to pick any template that you want, import it into your screen, and then begin to work with it now that you know the basics of operations. That means then that any template that you use, you should be able to change the headers as well as to change the information that you're collecting. And so now you can take any document that you're working with, you should be able to share it by clicking the share button, and to be able to export it into another file. Now to close, we will then export our document into a PDF file to deliver it digitally. You can do that either through the export menu or through the save as menu. You should now be able to take the file type, find the PDF in this area, and then save your file. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I'll see you either in another video or in another course.